Thank you for joining us on the Moms Who Know podcast, the podcast for moms who know that when they take care of themselves, they can take better care of everyone else. Today's podcast is a great episode. I'm excited for you guys to hear it because it's all about success, and it's really a discussion about your definition of success and what a successful life is going to look like for you. Now, no matter what angle you're coming at this from, if you are a working mom or a stay-at-home mom or a work-at-home mom or not even a mom, there is something here for you. Our guest today is a professional. She speaks on stages. She knows her stuff, and she's just going to get you thinking about some things that you might want to do or change in your life. So I'm excited for you to dive into this episode and really learn from her. Be sure to stay tuned at the end for our discussion question of the week. Hello and welcome to the Moms Who Know podcast. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen, and my guest today is Laura Gassner Otting. Laura, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with your moms.
Yeah, we're excited to have you, and I'm looking forward to a great conversation today. So a quick introduction. Laura Gassner Otting is a professional motivational keynote speaker and the founder of Limitless Possibility. She helps people get unstuck in their thinking, push past their limiting beliefs, and achieve extraordinary results. She is turned on by the audacity of the big idea and that larger than life goal you just can't seem to shake. I love that wording. We're going to have to come back to that. And Laura is the author of a new book called Limitless that we're going to talk a little bit about today also. So I am excited to jump right into this and to learn a little bit more. Laura is also a mom of two. She has two boys, and we're going to just start. So you are a mom, you're a career woman. For moms in particular, whether they have a career or not, just let's talk about success. What does success mean to you?
Well, success for me means being able to build a career that allows me to also be a mom. You know, when I started my last company, my oldest son, my firstborn, was 6 weeks old, and I'd had an unplanned C-section. So I had 24 hours of labor and an unplanned C-section, and all your moms right now are going, oh yeah, right?
Yeah.
Because we know what that means is 6 weeks later, you still can't really like walk across the room without a lot of help. And I had been doing executive search at a big firm. I was the all-in person. I was leaning in. I was doing it all. And I went from an early career in politics and working in the White House to working in this, big fancy consulting firm. And then I had this moment of rage where I decided I could do things better and faster and with more profit and more authenticity and more integrity than the big firm. And I had like a Jerry Maguire moment, and I quit. And then fast forward, there I am. I give birth. It's 6 weeks later, and I get a phone call from a friend of mine that I worked with back in my White House days, who was one of those, like, I'm never going to have kids career woman. And she was like, so, ew, I heard you had a baby. That's cool, I guess. Are you still doing search? Because the CEO of my company just announced that he was quitting. And I was like, yes. Sure. And then I quickly Googled like how to make a contract. And so success for me has always been, how do I build work that gives me some kind of calling and something that I feel is worthy of my time in, on this earth, my one go around on this earth, but is also worthy of taking me away from my family, because I wanted to not become the person who was all in, working 80 hours a week and not seeing my family. But I also wanted to do something outside of the house that allowed me to be a better person when I was in the house. So everybody's definition of success will be different. But for me, mine was one where my home and my work integrated.
I love that. Okay. And I'm glad that you said that everyone's definition of success is different. I think that is true. I know plenty of people who are stay-at-home moms and define their success by, how they're doing as a mom, how they're raising their kids. And it can be you can have that small definition of success. You can have, my definition of success is to go run the country or whatever it might be, but where we define it ourselves and then we live to our own standard, I think is a really important piece of that.
Well, I spent all of this time interviewing people who were pretty successful people, like on paper, right? The Sheryl Sandbergs of the world would say they leaned in, they were successful. And what I found, and I found this in my own life, was that even though on paper they were hyper successful, bold faced names, they weren't all necessarily happy. And I was struck by this idea that success, as defined traditionally, doesn't always equal happiness. So if success doesn't equal happiness, how do we become happy? And that's really what that really became the genesis of the book, because I wanted to figure out, well, if there are people who are successful and happy, what makes them that way? And it really, for me, came down to one pivotal decision. And that decision was to ignore everybody else and to decide what happiness means for us, what success means for us. And so, as you said, it may be running the country, it may be running your household, but at every age and at every life stage, that definition can and should change. And so, the greatest thing about being a mom, I think, is that it teaches us that we have multitudes inside of us, and that we are and can be and will become different people for our kids at their different ages and life stages. And so why shouldn't we become different people for ourselves as well?
I love that. That is so good. I think there's so much there because it's so true. And as moms, we keep rising to this new level. When our kids need us at a new level, we rise to it. And then when we see that in our motherhood, that has so many implications for our entire existence, our entire life, everything that we do. Now, I want to go back to what you mentioned about ignoring everybody. Talk to me a little bit more about what that means and how we do it.
So, we spend a lot of time, even as moms, saying, I'm going to judge my success by how well I'm raising my family, right? By how well I'm doing this job that I have as a mom. But then how do we do that? How do we decide what success actually looks like? We get on Facebook, we get on Instagram, and we see everybody else's shiny little pictures of their shiny little families. And we think, oh, well, my family doesn't look so shiny. I must not be successful. To wit, this year I posted happy second day of school, and I posted a picture of my kids on the second day of school, because on the first day of school, they were so busy bickering with each other that they couldn't even stop for a moment to take that picture. That picture, the one that the one that you make sure that you're there for. For me, I had to cancel meetings. I had to make sure that I was home. I had lined everything up, and the moon and the stars had to be perfectly alignment in the third, house of Jupiter in order for me to be able to be there for the first day of school. And then my kids were horrible human beings to each other, and not just horrible, like outside of body horrible, in ways that I'd never seen them act before. And I stood there feeling like every decision I had made and every decision I hadn't made, like everything I'd done was wrong. And I let loose and I yelled at them, and in a way that I am not proud of. And then we drove to school in stony silence with me, like choking back tears the whole time, feeling like I was second guessing, like, am I not around enough? Am I around too much? Like, what is how do they become these people? And I forgot to realize that it was the first day of school for them. They were really stressed out. Like it was a whole new day for them. And then I got home and I looked at everybody's fancy pictures of all their first day and their kids in their matching outfits. And my kids were like barely showered and wearing sweatpants and fighting like maniacs. So we got home that night, and I looked at my kids and I said, and this is not my brilliance. This is a friend of mine who walked me off the ledge. So I would love to take credit for it, but I can't. She said to me, what if you guys were all the very best versions of yourself? Who would you be? Would you be those shiny people on Facebook? And I'm like, no, actually, we wouldn't. We're totally quirky and weird and funky, and we wouldn't be them. And she said, so why don't you explain to your kids what this day means to you? Talk to them about why they were acting the way they were. And then everybody ask each other, you weren't proud of your behavior. They're probably not proud of their behavior, and have a do-over tomorrow. And so the next day we got up and we had a do-over, and they were perfectly lovely, like, they usually are in our house. And we took a picture, and even the dog, who's, I think, barking in the background right now, came over and stood in the picture, and we had a happy second day of school. And I posted that on Facebook. And I posted the story about how in the do-over, we found our grace. And I can't tell you the number of people who reached out to me publicly on Facebook, but also privately, and just said, thank you. Thank you so much for redefining what success could be. Success isn't getting it right the first time. Success isn't having the happy, shiny, everything's perfect family, but success is having the problems and the foibles and the arguments and then becoming better people through it.
Oh, yes. Okay. I can see why that resonated with people because I think for all of us, it's just so easy to look at other people's, that comparison thing where we look at what other people are doing and man, why did they have it together when I am struggling here and when I'm yelling at my kids and all these things? And so to give people that permission to do a do-over and to say, hey, we didn't get it right the first time, but we're still trying. We all need to know that about each other. And sometimes we forget. I mean, we know it's there and yet we forget. We think everyone else has it together and we're the only ones who, are secretly dressed to the waist down and wearing yoga pants or, just whatever, not wearing a bra at school pickup.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and what happens is we end up judging everybody else's highlights. We judge everyone's highlight reel through our own bloopers, right? Yeah. So if all you're doing is you're looking at your bloopers and you're going, well, I don't have it together. I'm not so great. I was on the Today Show about a month ago and on the Hoda and Jenna Bush Hager hour. And Hoda looks at me. She's like, yeah. She's like, but you clearly have it all together. And literally on the Today Show, I rolled my eyes and went, yeah, right. I didn't mean to do that because I wanted to look like I had it all together, but I had it all together because I had hair and makeup in the green room. Of course I looked like I had it all together. But the person who showed up at 30 Rockefeller Center that day certainly didn't have it all together and was, so nervous she could barely string words, 2 words together. But I think, the way to get unstuck and the way to find that happiness is first and foremost, as we've discussed, to ignore everybody else and to say, the idea of being that perfect person, that somebody else's definition of success and filling in all the right check boxes, the right house, the right spouse, the right schools, the right after school programs, the right whatever, so what if your kid doesn't pick up, the violin at 3 years old? They're going to be okay, right? It's going to be all right. And, we ascribe to the notion that kids should be bored. They should find their own fun. Personally, we don't have kids that are on 16 teams and play 4 different instruments and speak 5 languages. Now, it may be that my kids end up, living on the streets when they get older, but I'm doubting it. I think they're going to be okay. And I think, they are pursuing their own interests. And I'm not telling them, if you're not a math kid and a science kid and an English kid and a history kid and a music kid, you're a failure. I'm saying figure out what you love and lean into that.
Yes. Okay. That is totally me too. That's how I parent my kids. Are not doing a ton of activities and we cherish the boredom. I love it. My kids say, Mom, I'm bored. And I say, that is awesome because now you're going to find something amazing to do, in which they hate that answer. But
exactly.
It is. Go for it. Be bored. I'm so happy for you that you're bored.
Yes, be bored and go figure it out. I mean, my son is bored, and so he gets on the internet and in front of a screen. And you know what he does? He watches videos from NASA about space launches and what the International Space Station is like. And this weekend we were at an event where another one of the speakers was an astronaut, and he came with me and he talked to that astronaut for 45 minutes about every single aspect of this guy's mission. And the guy after was like, he's kind of a fan. I was like, if you had a baseball card, he would collect it, right? But this all comes out of the fact that he was bored and that he decided what he was interested in. Am I interested in NASA and space? Not that much. So if I were dictating what he should do and what success would look like, it probably would not have been that. And because I didn't dictate what his interest should be and what success would be, he was able to find his own. And in that, he was able to find his passion.
I love that. Okay. So speaking of finding your passion, let's talk about it for us, for the women, for the moms who are listening. How do we find our passion? How do we find our purpose? Day to day, we can get so caught up in the laundry and the meals and all the things that we're doing for other people. How do we find that for ourselves?
So I think it starts with making sure that you understand why you do the things you do. So if you're trying to figure out how to find this calling, how to find your purpose, how to find your passion, I think it starts by thinking about what you want out of life. So we get very confused by, this idea that purpose has to be this big lofty purpose, and that if we're not curing cancer or saving the whales, what we're doing doesn't matter. And I believe that that's a fallacy. I believe that is, I looked up the definition of purpose in the dictionary. And purpose means simply the reason for which something is done. Now, I spent 20 years helping people find work in the nonprofit sector, and I wrote a book about transitioning from the corporate to the nonprofit world. So I believe deeply in nonprofit work, but I will tell you that that the way to find your purpose and the way to find your passion is to think about what you want. If what you want is buying the beach house and the Maserati, great. If what you want is to learn a third language, great, right? Like, what is the thing that you care about more than anything else? What is the raison d'etre? And it could be building a family. It could be having a side business that you love to do. But it is thinking about the thing that gives you this gravitational pull. And very often, if we're not sure what that is, we can do an inventory of how we spend our attention. What are the things that you do when you have free time? Is it service in your community? Is it something athletic? Is it reading about a particular subject? Like, how do you actually spend your time when you have that time? Maybe it's travel, and that's really a good way to shape to see what you're drawn to.
Yes. Okay. I think that's such a good idea. And I also want to point out, I love the concept. You said, if you want the worldly things, the car and the house and all this fancy stuff, that's great. Go for it. I did an exercise recently with a coach who I work with, and she talked about writing down all the things you want and letting go of judgment. And I hear that in what you're saying. It's like, whatever you feel pulled to, go for it. Let go of that guilt and just listen to what you want. Because I think what happens is sometimes we really hold ourselves back. We think, I want that car, but, do I really need it? I'm a mom. I should have a minivan, right? Like, have you seen that with people of holding themselves back from what they actually want?
I see that all the time. And, I think that we live in a society where ambition has gotten a dirty word.
Yeah.
It's become a dirty word. And especially for women. Like, you never hear anybody say, oh, he's so ambitious. But you hear that about women all the time, right? Oh, she's so ambitious. Why? Like, what's wrong with being ambitious? And here's the thing. I'm going to relieve your moms from the burden of ambition by asking them this one simple question. Would being in a position that gives you power, having more access to the people who make decisions in your community, driving a car that makes you a happier person so that you're happier wherever it is that you get to, would being in a place where you had bigger, better, faster, more of whatever it is that you define that allow you to be better, bigger, faster, more for the causes you care about or the people that you love? Probably, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I don't think it's ambition. I think it's your responsibility.
Yes. Oh, that is so good. I agree. This last year I did a study, have been working on my word for last year was abundance. And so I studied about money and having money and what that really means. And it comes down to basically what you just said is like, it's not a bad thing to have more. It just gives you more opportunities to do more. And so that's really what I hear you saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, so I say to the people who say, oh, but I don't really want to make a lot of money because I think that means that I'm a sellout to the things that I care about. Fine. Make a lot of money and donate it all to the things that you care about. Or if being home allows, your spouse to have a career that facilitates the kind of life that you want so that you can volunteer in your community to things that matter, then great. Fantastic. But I think, our kids are watching us. They're watching what we do. They're watching our self-talk about whether or not we're valuable. And when they're hearing us self-talk about how we're not worthy and how we're not valuable and how we don't deserve the nicer car or the massage or taking a day to ourselves or, whatever the thing is, when they hear us talk about that, they hear us say that the things that we're doing don't matter and that they're not valuable.
Yes. Okay. I think that is so important.
And frankly, if what we're doing is shaping them as humans and that's not valuable, that's not a good thing for them to be hearing either.
Yeah, great point. Definitely. Yeah, not only are we not valuable, but that translates onto how we perceive their value. So I love that. Now, there's something in your book that you talk about that I wanted to make sure that we touch on today, because I think there's so much here for moms and for everyone. The 4 C's that you talk about of calling, connection, contribution, and control. So can we go through those, what they mean, and also what they can mean for us as moms specifically?
Yes. So, in order to be limitless, I feel that people need to find their consonance, right? The thing that puts them in alignment, in flow, where all of their energies are moving towards the life that they want to create. And everybody's rubric of consonance is going to be different at every age and at every life stage. So it comes from 4 things. Now, we have to have all 4 of them. We don't have to have all 4 of them in equal parts, and we can have very precious little of some of them, but we have to have a little bit of all 4 at least. The first is calling. Something that you care about, something that's bigger than you, this sort of motivational, this gravitational force in your life. And that is the thing, from which we're able to say, it's a business I want to build. It's a societal ill I want to remedy. It's a cause I wish to serve. It's a leader who inspires me. And for moms, it's the family that I want to build. It's the kind of world that I want to shape through the humans that I'm developing, right? So this is the calling, the gravitational pull, the thing that's larger than yourself. That's the first thing. The second is connection. And connection allows you to see how this everyday work serves that calling by solving the problem, growing a company's bottom line, reaching a goal. For moms, a mom might say, like, well, I'm just sitting here under a pile of, 15 pounds of laundry. I don't get the connection. But if the connection is allowing your kid to go out on the soccer pitch feeling prideful about this clean uniform and having a breakthrough day because they were courageous and they scored a goal, then that's absolutely in direct connection to your calling. And so it's thinking about what are the things that you're doing all day long. And I use work to say, like, the things that are productive time of day. It's not, that could be volunteer, it could be paid, it could be whatever, but it's like the time that you spend doing things that make you a productive member of whatever society you belong to. So that's the second. The third is contribution. And contribution is an understanding how this job, this brand, this paycheck, the life that you are building around you is contributing to the community that you want to belong to, or the person you want to be, or the lifestyle you'd like to live. And so moms have tons of contribution in this because they're able to see the way that their productive time is creating a foundation on which you have possibly a spouse or not. You've got kids, you've got, the dog, the cat, the hamster, whatever it is, but you are building a life that allows you to have the flexibility to be present for the people that you care about most when they need you most. I often say, as you mentioned, I have 2 teenage boys, and I travel about 150,000 miles a year for work, which is a ton, but I'm home also a ton. I'm gone for 2 days and I'm home for 3 days. And when I'm home, I'm around. I'm just kind of here. Like, my kids are like, aren't you going to go to work today? It's like, nope, I'm going to fly to work tomorrow. And I'm gone for 2 days and I'm home for a day and gone for 3 days and home for 3 days. And teenagers don't really need you, but when they need you, oh boy, you better be there, right? Like, they really need you. So I have created for myself work that allows me to feel deeply connected to my clients, because when I'm with them, but it also contributes to the life that I want to lead, because I'm also able to be super present for my family members when I'm home. And then, thanks to technology and FaceTime, I've got a connection to them. And then the last element is control. And control reflects really how much you're able to influence, how much connection you have, and how much contribution you have in your work. So for moms, it would be thinking about how much, when I had little kids, I was lucky enough to be able to hire somebody to babysit for my kids a few hours a day. And I could make a decision during those few hours, should I am I going to go to the gym? Am I going to sit around? Am I going to take a nap? Depending on how old they were, sometimes I was napping. But a lot of times I would take the time that I had a babysitter, and that's when I would go to the supermarket and I would go to Target and I would do things like that, because I knew when I was with my kids, since I had fewer hours because I was working part of the day, I also wanted to make sure that I was not dragging them to Target and to the supermarket, and that I wanted to be super present. And so control allowed me to make sure that I was earning enough money with my clients so that I had the contribution and the flexibility to live the life I wanted, so that I could connect with the time that I was with my kids to be with them, to serve that calling of helping to make the world a better place, both through my work doing nonprofit executive search, and also through my time with my kids building these, future humans that I'm hoping to leave the, the fate of the world in their hands.
Yes, I love how you've tied all that in. I, just got the wheels spinning for me and really made some connections for me personally. And I think the thing that stands out most is that idea of connecting what you're doing to your calling. Because I think that when you're in the trenches of motherhood, it's so easy to forget that. And to feel like, oh, I'm just doing the laundry. I'm just making dinner, without realizing the bigger purpose there. And I think that what these four is to do so well is help you really put it all together and see, like, no, that laundry that you're doing. I love the example that you gave. That laundry allows your son to feel better on the soccer field, and be out there in clean clothes. All these things really work together.
And I'll tell you what it also helps moms to do is it helps them to say no. So for example, if you know that your kids got the science fair coming up and they're super stressed out about that, and that's happening on a Friday, but on Thursday is the bake sale for the school, and somebody randomly runs into you in the hallway and says, "Hey, Chanel, would you chair the bake sale?" And you're like, yes, I'd love to. That'd be great, right? That sucker punch of an ask we've all gotten. Like, can you coordinate the teacher's, end of year gifts or whatever the thing is? We've all gotten it and we've all said yes to it. But if you're thinking to yourself, my calling is making sure that my kid has the best experience they have and I can be super present for him or her when they're working on their project. Well, being harried and running around and, baking 17,000 cupcakes is not going to do that. And so the cupcake sucker punch is not connected in any way to your calling. And you can say, I would love to do that next year. This year's not going to work out. Fine. You're done. It's over. And I'm not saying because we shouldn't do the bake sale. We absolutely should. But I'm saying quite often we're not asked to do things because we are the best person around. Quite often we're asked to do things because we are just, the closest proximate heartbeat. And that's the person that they ran into, right? If they ran into Jane or Sue or Mary, they would have asked them. And so I think that being really clear on what your calling is and how much the things that you're doing on a daily basis connect to that and how you want that to contribute to the overall life that you're trying to build allows you to then be thoughtful about how much control you have over it and what you say yes and what you say no to.
And I think that allows you to get rid of the guilt too, because you're not just saying no because you're a jerk. No, I don't want to do your dumb cupcake thing. You're saying yes to something better and intentionally choosing that and saying, I know what my purpose is. I know what I need to do to really answer to that calling. And that's not cupcakes today. And then you can move on and not feel bad.
Fantastic. Yes. And I will tell you the very best piece of personal and professional advice I ever got was this, and it's harsh. You're just not that important. And I was like, wait, no. Like at this point, I'm volunteering on several committees in my community. I'm building my business. I've got 2 kids. My husband has an exceptionally inflexible job. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm pretty important to all of those things. And what she said was, well, you're really not, right? Like, what if you didn't show up to work tomorrow? What would happen? I said, well, my business would fall apart. And she said, well, then you're micromanaging. Then you're not building a strong enough business that it can't withstand you being gone for a day. And what if, and what if all of a sudden you didn't show up for those committee meetings in your community? I said, well, I don't know. Nobody would do any work. And she said, well, then maybe it doesn't matter to them that much. And maybe you're trying to force your will on them. And she sort of like went through every part of my life and cut me to shreds. And at the end of which she said, what really matters to you? And I said, my husband, these 2 kids, this one issue that I'm working on. And she said, good. You're that important to those things. Double down there and say no to everything else.
I love that so much. Yes.
Right? So I say to people all the time, are you that important? Right? So I'm not that important to the bake sale. The truth is, somebody else can, and frankly, probably should do it. And there are other things that I can do. But the bake sale didn't make any sense for me in that moment. Now, had I gotten more than 3 days notice for the preparation for it, I probably could have used my great skills of organizing and recruiting and facilitating. And I probably could have gotten lots of people to bake lots of things. But 2 days before that, baking 17,000 cupcakes, not my strong suit. Somebody else can and should do it. And if it didn't happen, then it doesn't happen. But for me to let somebody else's emergency, there's somebody else's lack of planning become my emergency, and then divert me from what is actually my calling and what really does matter to me, and that thing to which I am that important. That's just guilt talking.
Yes. And that's not who we want to listen to, right? We want to listen to this deeper voice, this deeper understanding of our purpose. And I think that's so great. I think your work really leads us to that. I know people are going to want to learn more. So where can they get your book, and where can they find out more about you?
Yeah, so they can find me at lauragassnerotting.com/momswhoknow, and that'll have the links to where they can find my book. My book is Limitless: How to Ignore Everybody, Carve Your Own Path, and Live Your Best Life. And it's on Amazon.com. It's on Barnes & Noble. It's anywhere fine books are sold. But I will tell you that if they're listening to this and they're thinking, gee, I don't know, calling, connection, contribution, control, it's all very complicated. I've actually put together a quiz at limitlessassessment.com. And I'll say that again, limitlessassessment.com. And they can go, it's about a 60 question quiz. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes to take. And, I call things work in the quiz. But again, work is anywhere that you spend your productive time, whether it's with your family and your community at a traditional paid job. And the results of it will be a beautiful radar chart that has 2 circles. The first has your compulsion. So how much of calling, connection, contribution, and control do you want to have in your life? And then your quotient, how much you actually have of each of them. And it'll show you where you're not aligned. And then it'll give you some tips on how to get there.
That sounds fun. I'm going to go check that out. Now, as we've talked, we've gone over lots of things today, and I feel like there are so many valuable things. What is the thing that you hope moms take away from this?
I would hope that moms take away that there are no right answers, and that anybody who tells you they have all the answers is full of malarkey. They have all the answers for them, maybe, but they definitely don't have all the answers for you. And so I would want moms to take away confidence in the idea that they know best what's right for them, and they know best what defines success for them personally, for their family in their own home, and to really go after that with everything they have, not feeling guilty or green with envy in comparison with everybody else's highlight reels.
Perfect. I love that takeaway. I think it's something we can all use and we all need to be reminded of. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to continuing the conversation online on all the socials. I'm at Hey LGO, like, hey there, Hey LGO. And would love to continue to talk to moms who know.
Awesome. I will link to that. And thank you everyone for listening to Moms Who Know. I hope you heard some awesome things for you in this episode. Now, the question that I want to hear from you this week is, how do you define success? What does success look like for you? You can think about this, share it with your spouse, share it with a friend, or if you want to share with me, I would love to hear it. You can visit us at Moms Who Know Podcast on Facebook or Instagram and tell us all about it. Have a great week, and I'll see you guys later.